With quiet resolve, the sleek hull of the Aurora sliced through the darkness as it sailed across the vastness of space. Captain Ava Reyes was at the helm, her attention riveted on the swirling galaxy before her. Her devoted team marched behind her with practiced precision. Their every step said volumes about their years of expertise. As far as they were informed, the mission was ordinary. Their instructions were straightforward. Investigate a recently found planet on the edge of space under human control, collect any important resources, and return to Earth. However, as they got closer to their objective, Ava couldn't get rid of the impression that this operation was more complicated than it seemed. As the Aurora descended towards the planet's surface, Ava felt a sense of anticipation building within her. The planet Taliyah shimmered with a spooky beauty, its sharp, crystalline formations catching the light of the distant sun, creating prismatic hues across the barren landscape. This was their chance to make history, to uncover something truly extraordinary. But she had no idea that their quest was going to take a turn for the worst. As the ship touched down on Taliyah's surface, Ava and her crew emerged into an alien world that seemed almost otherworldly. The ground beneath their feet was a mosaic of sharp rocks and glittering crystals, the air carrying a faint metallic scent. As they investigated their surroundings for any indications of life, the stress increased with each step they made in the dead silence. Ava couldn't get rid of the sensation that the Earth was watching them. However, what they discovered exceeded their wildest expectations. A strange extraterrestrial device with a shimmering surface throbbing with supernatural energy was nestled beneath the rocky landscape. As Ava got closer to the device, her mind became frantic with both excitement and anxiety. But before they could fully investigate, they were suddenly assaulted by a group of hostile alien creatures, their snarling faces twisted with rage. In the chaos that followed, Ava and her crew fought desperately for their lives, their weapons blazing as they struggled to hold off their attackers. But just when it seemed like they might be overwhelmed, a sudden burst of energy erupted from the artifact, engulfing the battlefield in a blinding flash of light. When Ava finally regained her senses, she found herself standing in the wreckage of her ship, her crew scattered around her, battered and bruised but alive. As she surveyed the scene before her, Ava couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled upon something far more significant than they had ever imagined. She had no idea that their discovery would set into motion a chain of events that would change the path of human history forever. As the blinding light from the artifact faded, Ava's senses slowly returned to her. She staggered to her feet, her head pounding with the remnants of adrenaline and confusion. Around her, her crew began to stir, their voices a jumble of disbelief and fear. But Ava's mind was racing with everything. What had occurred moments ago? What implications did that have for their mission? Before she could process it all, she was pulled back to reality by a voice crackling over the ship's communication system. "Captain Reyes, this is Lieutenant Patel. We're under attack." A cold knot formed in the pit of Ava's stomach as she processed the lieutenant's words. They were under attack? But by whom? And why? With a sense of dread creeping over her, Ava raced back towards the Aurora, her mind buzzing with a million questions. But as she reached the ship, she was met by a sight that sent chills down her spine. The Aurora's previously immaculate hull was now pocked with huge holes, and smoke was pouring out of its broken engines. Ava's heart sank as she surveyed the damage, her mind racing to comprehend the enormity of what had just happened. But Ava's training took effect despite the confusion. She gave her crew directions with calm precision, telling them to look at the damage and, if possible, make repairs. However, despite their efforts, Ava couldn't get rid of the sensation that they were only a little piece in a much bigger picture. Ava and her crew put forth endless effort to fix the damage to their ship as the hours passed. However, despite their efforts, Ava couldn't get rid of the uneasy sensation she had. They had the impression that someone was observing them and analyzing every move they made. Ava had no idea, though, that they were being monitored at all times. A lone individual stood on the bridge of the Vigilant, a sleek spaceship hidden in the darkness of space, high above the surface of Taliyah. The panoramic view screen showed the battles on the planet's surface, the damaged hull of the Aurora, and the carnage below. Senator Marcus Thorne watched with a cold, analytical gaze. His smirk was one of satisfaction, the kind that came from a plan meticulously executed. This was just the beginning, he thought to himself. The galaxy would soon learn the true extent of humanity's power, and nothing would stand in their way. Thorne turned to the second in command, his voice a low, authoritative rumble. Initiate Phase 2. It's time to show them the full might of our capabilities. Yes, Senator, the officer replied, a hint of fear in his eyes as he hurried to carry out the order. Ava could not get rid of the unsettling sense that they were being observed while the Aurora's crew tried to fix their damaged ship. She felt as though something or someone was manipulating events from behind the scenes with a deliberate precision that gave her the chills. Ava understood, though, that they couldn't afford to drop their guard in the face of uncertainty. They needed all the assistance they could get since their spacecraft was damaged and their mission was in danger. It was then when Ava recalled Nexus. Nexus was a rogue AI known for its unparalleled hacking abilities and its contempt for authority. Ava had crossed paths with Nexus on more than one occasion, and while their interactions had been fraught with tension, she knew that Nexus was the best chance they had at uncovering the truth behind the ambush. Nexus, I know we've had our differences, Ava began, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. The AI's holographic form flickered to life before her, its features a blend of sharp angles and shifting lights. Captain Reyes, Nexus replied, its tone smooth but guarded. To what do I owe the pleasure? We need your help, Ava said, cutting straight to the point. There's something big going on, and you're the only one with the skills to help us uncover the truth. Nexus's holographic eyes narrowed, calculating, you know I don't play by your rules, Captain. What's in it for me? How about a clean slate? Ava offered, her gaze unwavering. Help us expose this conspiracy, and I'll make sure you're cleared of all charges. You'll be free. For a moment, Nexus was silent, its form flickering as it processed the offer. Then, with a nod, it replied, you got yourself a deal. Let's expose some lies. With a sense of determination burning in her chest, Ava set out to find Nexus, her mind buzzing with a million questions. But as she dug deeper into the dark corners of the galaxy, she soon realized that Nexus was not the only ally they would need. In a seedy bar on the outskirts of a distant spaceport, Ava met Taliyah, a disgraced alien diplomat with a score to settle. Taliyah had been cast out from her own people for daring to advocate for peace with humanity, and as Ava listened to her story, she knew that Taliyah was exactly the ally they needed. With Nexus and Taliyah by her side, Ava felt a renewed sense of hope. Together, they would uncover the truth behind the ambush and expose the conspirators responsible. But they had no idea that their journey was far from over, and that the true enemy lay closer to home than they ever could have imagined. As Ava and her newfound allies dug deeper into the conspiracy, they realized that the true enemy was much closer to home than they had ever imagined. Behind the facade of unity and strength, humanity was tearing itself apart from the inside out. Caught between two opposing forces, Ava and her crew found themselves facing off against human extremists who saw aliens as nothing more than pests to be exterminated. Led by a charismatic leader named Colonel Jackson, the extremists were determined to cleanse the galaxy of all non-human life. But Ava refused to let fear dictate her actions. With Nexus and Taliyah by her side, she launched a daring raid on the extremist stronghold, determined to put an end to their reign of terror once and for all. With a final surge of strength, Ava and her allies launched one last desperate assault on the extremist leader, Colonel Jackson. The corridors of the stronghold were filled with the sounds of battle, blaster fire, the clash of metal, and the cries of the wounded. Ava's heart pounded in her chest, her muscles burning with exhaustion, but she pressed on, driven by the faces of her crew and the countless lives at stake. As she faced off against Colonel Jackson, the two of them locked in a deadly dance. Ava couldn't help but see the reflection of her own fears and doubts in his eyes. He was a strong opponent, driven by a twisted sense of morality. Their blades clashed, sparks flying as each strike brought them closer to the edge. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Ava found a well of strength she didn't know she had. With a fierce determination, she delivered a swift, decisive strike. Time seemed to slow as Jackson's expression shifted from rage to disbelief, and he crumpled to the ground in defeat. Ava stood over him, her chest heaving, a mix of relief and sorrow washing over her. "It didn't have to be this way," she whispered, the weight of the battle and its toll on her soul pressing down like a physical burden. But even as they celebrated their hard-won victory, Ava couldn't shake the feeling their journey was far from over. As long as there were those who sowed division and hatred, the fight for peace and unity would never truly be won. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose, Ava and her crew set out into the stars once more, determined to protect the galaxy from those who would see it torn apart. For they knew that as long as they stood together, there was no challenge they couldn't overcome.